Ladies and gentlemen, from the capital city of Georgetown, Guyana, the land of many waters in South America, please welcome Lady Wendy.
Welcome to you today. We're here, my audience, because it's a very serious topic we're going to discuss: diabetes and hypertension. It has been, I believe, the 5th or 6th leading cause of death in Guyana. At least I was told 7% every year of Guyanese die from diabetes, and 6.5% die of hypertension. It's very serious. As a matter of fact, I even brought forward this show in order so that we can talk about it. In the last 4 months, I've had at least 2 of very close friends of mine died under 50 of diabetes and blood pressure, or had a stroke. Matter of fact, just 3 days ago, a very close friend of mine in New York just got it, and she's under 50. So I thought it is time that we bring this to the forefront and talk about it, because in order that we can prevent it, because diabetes and hypertension, you don't have to die from it if you do the right preventative methods. So sit back, don't go away. We have lined up for you tonight. We have Dr. Owen Eiffel. He's going to talk to you about hypertension and diabetes, and he's also going to show you his alternative way of medicine, of curing these illnesses, or disease rather, matter of fact. And we also have in the audience a dietary manager from the Georgetown Public Hospital and a nutritionist from the Ministry of Health, who's going to talk to you about preventative and the proper way of eating. So don't go away. We'll be right back.
It takes just a bite and a taste to get you hooked on an incredibly delightful discovery. Humphreys Bakery and Farm Products. It's the taste of the best combination of spices. Get a taste of our buttery buns, delightful tarts and scrumptious cakes, rolls and pastries. Sample nature at its best. Visit us today at 38 Ketley Street, Charleston, or call us on telephone 225-7864. Humphreys Bakery and Farm Products, where we delight in serving you the best.
Thanks for staying with us. I have who have just joined me here, Dr. Owen Eiffel. He's a returning doctor from New York, internal medicine to be precise, and he's also very experienced in alternative medicine. But before we go there later on in the show, we'll be tackling that. I want to ask you, thanks for joining us. Tell me a little bit about you, Mr. Doctor.
I'm from Buxton on the East Coast. I studied initially in Cuba. I went to Cuba in 1980. I returned in 85 after getting my MD. I worked with the Ministry of Health in Guyana for 5 years to complete my contract, after which I worked for about 2 years with Gaisuko before leaving for the States in 1992.
Okay, and now you're back.
Yes.
And welcome back, because a lot of Guyanese are coming back, and that's very nice. I visited you yesterday in Buxton, and I'm very pleased to see that you've come back to your homeland to do some work, because it's very much needed. Now, diabetes and hypertension, as you know it. Explain to our audience what is the two, and just in layman's term. It doesn't have to be lengthy, but...
Okay. Diabetes is what we call a metabolic disorder. Diabetes is a disease in which glucose utilization is impaired. Insulin is a hormone that's produced in the pancreas, and insulin is responsible for getting glucose into cells. Mm-hmm. Okay. In diabetes, insulin, in some cases, it's totally absent. In some cases, it is sort of deficient. Mm-hmm, in some cases, the insulin itself, it isn't of good quality.
Okay.
And in certain people, especially obese people with type 2 diabetes, they can develop what we call insulin resistance, in which insulin may be adequate, it may be okay, but the tissues in obese people sort of resist the influence of insulin.
Okay.
So it also does not facilitate the entry of glucose into cells.
Okay. So am I to assume that only obese people are their chances are more highly likely that they can develop diabetes?
The divisions are kind of artificial, but we use them in terms of managing people with diabetes. There's what we call type 1 diabetics.
Mm-hmm.
These generally are young people, and in type 1 diabetics, they generally don't produce significant amounts of insulin. These are people who need external insulin for them to lead normal lives. If they don't get insulin, they'll get sick, they'll die.
Okay.
Okay. Type 2 diabetics, basically, they don't need insulin to be able to live normal lives. Those are the people on pills.
Okay.
But there is significant amount of overlap. There are a lot of people, for example, these days who are both on insulin and pills, for example.
Plenty of young people are getting diabetes more so now, or maybe because we have the technology to test it, that we are able to say, yes, they're getting it at a younger age. What are your thoughts on that?
I think in the 70s, trans fats was banned in the United States. And since then, the food industry has introduced sugar into almost any type of food, any type of beverage. So sugar is almost in anything today. And also eating habits of young people has changed. They're more sedentary. Well, the electronics you're talking about, kids are more on computers now than running and playing games and stuff. So kids are getting fat, and also there's more sugar in the food.
Okay. So that could be very serious, because if you don't, when we were kids, we would play cricket, sol, all kind of activity. As a matter of fact, I'm going to be doing some work, and I will be consulting with the government, writing them a letter that we need to put more activities for kids to be doing, because if you, and correct me because you're the doctor, if you burn more, the carbs, and they're taking in more than they're actually burning off. And that, of course, is the main cause of the diabetes.
Yes, when I was in school, physical education was part of the curriculum. In most schools now, it's not. Everybody basically, the education system essentially now is books. And when they finish class, they go to lessons, and that is what it is. I came home last year, for example, and I was in the village, August time, when school is out, and I was shocked. I was asking people, where are the kids?
Where the cricket playing with the tin cup or playing the marbles? Yeah. There's nothing like that.
No, there are no kids. You can't see any kids any place.
Okay, so you're actually attributing, well, not to that diabetes is showing up more so in younger people because of lack of exercise, the culture of what they eat. Now, what about hereditary? What part does that play in the diabetes world?
Okay, type 2 diabetics, there is a familial / hereditary sort of, there is a familial hereditary sort of component.
Okay. Even though me on my spiritual journey, I usually say not because my mother had diabetes doesn't mean I have to have diabetes, because a lot of people go around with this hereditary think, because my mother had, yes, there are some component that does play a factor or certain things that triggers it, but it doesn't necessarily mean that. Okay, so that's very interesting to note in terms of diabetic and what it means and what diabetic is. Now let's turn our shift to the hypertension or high blood pressure. Explain what that is.
Okay. Hypertension isn't a well understood condition. Essentially, what we call hypertension is you put a sphygmomanometer, which is the blood pressure kit, on somebody, and you check their blood pressure. If it is high, if it is above what an arbitrary number is on 3 separate occasions, that person is deemed hypertensive.
Okay.
Okay. Again, it can run in families. There is a familial sort of genetic component to it, and the cause of it in most cases is not known. There are conditions that secondarily can cause hypertension, but those are in the minority.
And what, if you could give me, like, what would be a condition, for example?
Okay. People, for example, with kidney disease.
Okay.
Okay. People with hyper-functioning thyroid problems.
Okay.
For example, there is a condition in the artery of the kidneys
Okay.
that can secondarily cause hypertension.
Okay.
When people age, there's hardening of the arteries that in itself can secondarily cause high blood pressure.
Okay. Now, go back again. I am finding out that I have at least 2 of my daughter's friends who are just not even 23, and they are now coming up with high
blood pressure.
What could be, because it is the narrowing of the arteries, I was told, or...
No, but in somebody that young, that wouldn't be the case. There, as I said, there's a secondary cause of hypertension in which there is narrowing of an artery that goes into the kidney. And that type of hypertension is common in younger people.
Okay.
Yeah.
But so it could have been just a far off. You wouldn't normally see.
No, it isn't very common. But when you see somebody that young with high blood pressure, that is one of the places you should look. You should look for secondary hypertension.
Okay. So then I've gotten, just 3 nights ago, a friend of mine, under 50, she was out at a party, and going to reach for something, and she couldn't. She was actually lucky, because I was told, and I need you to confirm that most times when you get a stroke is probably at nights. But she was out, and she was lucky because she was out at a gathering at 10 in the night.
Stroke is a common complication of both diabetes and hypertension.
Okay.
And if you have the combination, if you have both, the probability, especially if the blood pressure is in control and the sugar is in control, the probability of you developing a stroke or a heart attack or kidney failure or eye issues.
Okay. Now, I also have a friend who was supposed to join us today, who at the age of 47 never checked her blood pressure. Would you recommend that we, as young, what you would say mature seniors, what would be a nice age to start checking for your blood pressure?
You should start checking your blood pressure from maybe age 20.
Age 20?
Yeah, I mean, at least, as I said, you can develop secondary hypertension as a young person.
Okay.
From this particular kidney condition I was telling you about. Unless you check it, you don't know.
Okay.
Sometimes anxiety issues can raise your blood pressure.
Okay.
It doesn't mean you have hypertension, but if your blood pressure is very high, issues can happen.
Yeah, because one of the things that I noted with a few people that I speak with, they would just check their blood pressure. They found out they have high blood pressure, but they don't take any medication, whether it's alternative medicine, they don't take anything, but they check it randomly, 6 months at a time, and that's a big problem here in Guyana. I'm a victim of a high hypertension, but I check mine if maybe every 3 days. I'm paranoid, but I find it.
No, that's fine. That example you just gave, I saw a patient like that just today.
Okay.
I saw her for the first time.
Uh-huh.
And this lady has significant hypertension. She knew that about 3 years ago for the first time, and she has checked her blood pressure maybe 5 or 6 times subsequent to that. All of them have been very high, and she's not on any medication. She's hiding from this thing.
And you know, I think people walk around as a walking time. I don't know. I talk about wealth, and I believe that in order to have wealth, I find everybody is so in tune with making that dollar. But yes, it's great to have money, and yes, it's great to be that entrepreneur. But if you're not taking care of the basic thing, which is your health, how are you going to enjoy that wealth if your health is no good?
I think inherently people are afraid of knowing what's wrong with them. People get nervous, anxious about disease. When a disease is finally diagnosed, over time, people sort of get to accept and acknowledge. I was talking with your brother just earlier outside of the studio, and it is a common occurrence, a common finding. People are afraid to come see the doctor. When they do come, you may diagnose something, they go into denial, they never come back. Maybe when the condition worsens, then they finally come back, then they finally accept, and then they finally take responsibility.
And by that time, because I know, one of the things that my doctor overseas has said to me, when I found out that I had, hypertension, he said, if you don't take care of your blood pressure, other issues can fall, which is your kidneys. So sometimes you need to keep those blood pressure lower number, because then you just a snowball effect. Next thing your kidneys, and then you have bigger problems.
Yeah.
So I'm hoping that this show will be able to talk more people into having their blood pressure and to having their diabetes under control. Talking about diabetes, we have in our audience right now, Percival Holder is no stranger to me. A matter of fact, he is my older sibling who has been battling with diabetes for several years. And I wanted to bring him on the show because he is what I call a survivor of it. And one of the reasons I brought him on is to tell you that because you have diabetes, you don't have to roll over. You have to put certain systems in place so that you can live. It may not be the perfect way of living, but it's still, he will tell you, and I'll let him do the talking, that years of diabetes. Now, Percy, how long could you tell the viewers you've had diabetes?
Well, I've been diagnosed as diabetic since I was about 26 years of age. That's over 30-something years ago.
Oh, you're actually telling your age in camera, but go on.
Well, you have to do something. And when I become diabetic, I didn't understand it. I know I've heard it, but I never really understood what diabetes is. And so I saw my doctor and I told him what it is, and he said, all your symptoms are diabetes. You're diabetic. And I ignored it because he said, you're going to go into diabetes. He did tell me, you're not going to believe it, and it's very serious, but you're not going to believe it, and you're going to end up with troubles. So don't deny it. Take my word and start eating and doing the right things to prevent it, because even though it's a disease, it's preventative if you take care of yourself. But me, I didn't want to believe it because I didn't feel anything. When I went to see him, I was feeling sleepy and then sometimes driving and falling asleep by the wheel, which was something I normally never did. And so he warned me about it. Okay. And I took what he said.
And what has happened to you in those 30 plus years?
Well, for the first 15 years, I ignored it and didn't pay any mind to the diabetes. I eat what I want to eat. I drink what I want to drink. I had fun. I drank the beers, the liquor, the stout, everything. I did everything just on the wild side. Until some years back, I came home to Guyana and wanted to go out on the seawalls and walk. I took a walk, and then I got running. And as I was running, with my jack shoes showing off, I feel something in my shoe rubbing. So I was worried about it. So I stopped, take off my socks, look, and I couldn't find nothing. So I put it back on and ran down Camp Street from the seawalls, got to where I live on North Road. And when I took off my shoe, there was a big blister. Well, that's when I realized how serious diabetes is, because that blister burst, and it took me at least a year and a half for that blister to heal.
Okay.
I had to completely change all my eating habits, everything. I was admitted into the hospital, and they tried with everything with me, and they said if I don't
change your ways,
I don't change my way, I would lose my foot.
Okay.
That was almost 15 years ago.
Within the period of discovering you had diabetes, well, taking the doctor seriously, you've had, I mean, because I've been on the journey with you, you've since been on
many medications.
Because you didn't take it seriously, because the whole idea of the show is preventative. Because you didn't take it seriously right away, I'm talking about, perhaps you may not have had other things that have happened to you, because you're also now went on insulin, and you did lose, and I let you do the talking. I'm trying to get you to.
Okay, well, yes, for carelessness, and I would urge anybody who's diabetic, specifically men, and those who are obese a little bit, or who parents or so have had diabetes, because I believe I think it is, I know it is hereditary, and it can be passed on through generation.
Yes.
And I would advise anyone who have diabetes to take it pretty serious. I would say, first of all, for men, I got to be clear. You can lose your activity as men, and if you're serious about yourself and want to have children and a family, better make sure you take care of yourself. It didn't happen to me, but I'm warning individuals. I'm warning individuals, they better go if they hear they're diabetic, or check to be sure that their diabetes is under control. It also comes with, they work together, diabetes, hypertension, kidneys, heart, all them work together. For me, I was lucky. I was in North America, and they have all these machines can tell you. They have a machine in North America that takes your blood out, separate the white blood from the red one, put it back into your body, and you could see it on the screen, that blood moving to where you have injuries and blockades, and showing it on the screen on your whole body where that blood is going. They have a lot of things, but we don't have this when you're in Guyana. Okay. And we in Guyana who don't have those things better be prepared to take care of ourselves. Also, if you notice, I wear two different shoes. When I have a little bruise or a scratch, I have to take good care. If I put on a regular shoe on that side, it will damage the tissue, and you will be within a matter of hours.
And that's, once again, if I would you pause there for a moment, feet is very important in a diabetic world, in terms of the type of shoes. Try to wear open mouth shoes as opposed to tightly fit shoes. It's rubbing. You have to check your feet, because when you become a diabetic, your nerves endings.
Yes, neuropathy.
Starts to.
Neuropathy. You have nerve ending.
Nerve ending.
You don't feel. Right now, I can't feel on my if I have an answer or fly land there, I cannot feel it.
Okay, because
unless you prong me with a hammer or something, then I will feel it. But the neuropathy is called nerve ending, and it's very important, and that's what happened when you show up. The reason why my doctor explained to me is because your heart is still here, and it have to pump the blood all the way down there, and the circulation process. If those veins or those arteries are not working, it's harder for the heart to pump the blood from here to down to your feet. And because they're having problems, the nerves them start to act up. It's a very painful process.
Okay. So then to bring us back now to you're very fortunate because you've had an intensive, 30 years of surviving diabetes, and then you've had the doctors and the medications and the equipment to do all the tests for you. We don't have that here in Guyana. So we really have to look at preventative even in a greater scale.
Yes, you do.
Which you would agree.
Oh,
so to advise so that we can, what would you want in advising is to the audience that are listening to you today?
First of all, diabetes is so serious, you have to watch out for your eyes. I just had a cataract operation due to a diabetes. And if you don't look after it, you have to see an eye doctor or an eye specialist, someone who's good in the retina, to make sure that your eyes are okay, or else the pressure can damage, and you within a matter of weeks or months you can lose your eyesight. You can lose your eyesight.
So you're saying that there's a seriousness to diabetes. It's not just is that you can start having limbs,
many complications.
Many complications. Yes. You could lose your toe. You could have eye issues. You could have heart. So all in all, we're trying to tell you out there is that this can be avoidable if you get tested and if you watch what you eat, which we will talk about that shortly. Now, and to finally, I know that you didn't let diabetes make you give up. You've actually just came back from a vacation. Tell the people who offer them some hope when who are diabetic now. We're talking the ones who are who is diabetic and who's diagnosed and who's feeling down. What would you say to them?
I would say don't be down. All those things that could happen to you, it all depends on what you put in your. You need a nutritionist or somebody, a diabetic nurse or somebody who knows, who can guide you along. I think I personally find the cure for diabetes, but
what is that?
I think you'll have to. I think you'll have to pay me to. You'll have to pay me to give you that information.
What is your cure?
A brother of mine told me diabetes comes specifically on what you put in your mouth.
Okay.
The carbohydrates that you put, the starch, the fatty food, the oily food, everything that you put in, everything that you eat. And as the good doctor was saying, they put in sugar in everything nowadays. So sugar is carbohydrates. Your body breaks down everything into carbohydrates when you put it in your body. The bread, you eat bread, white starchy bread, food, anything you eat. But the good part about it, if you eat the right food, or you balance your food, your meal, like for the bread, cut down the rice, just use a little bit of these things, a little bit of everything. Okay. You can balance yourself and you can survive.
Well, we have a dietitian, a manager dietitian from Georgia Hospital, and we do have a health nutritionist from the Ministry of Health, and they will talk about that. I have joining me right now Sandy Johnson, the manager for dietitian at the hospital, the Guyana General Hospital. Welcome. And right here we have Abigail Caleb from the Ministry of Health. Welcome.
Is your business experiencing slow traffic? Then it's time you turn to advertising. Advertising works. If you don't already have a video ad for your business for us to use, we can help you put it together. For more information, email info@ladywendyshow.com.